эксперт в области финансов и криптовалют, трейдер, создатель проектов LibertyLifeTrail и WorldCryptoNetwork. В период финансового кризиса 2018 года, пока мы думали с вами, как пережить кризис, он стал президентом JP Morgan Chase. Возглавлял команду экспертов Brain New Coin. Он аналитик в экономических тенденциях, торговле и анализе рисков. С тех пор, как в начале 2013 года он участвовал в экосистеме криптокарренси, начал проявлять свою активность в распространении, актуальности и важности этой технологии, поскольку она способствует экономической свободе. На сегодняшний день он независимый консультант и создатель контента в LibertyLifeTrail на своем YouTube-канале. Можно следить на английском, просто каждый день там появляются новые и новые видео. Встречайте Тон Vays. Тон, ну тебе даже, знаешь, говорят, кричат.
Так, здесь, наверное, лучше. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I want to apologize. Я говорю по-русски, но я эту презентацию сделаю на английском языке. Я ту же самую презентацию делал в Москве 2 дня назад на русском, и она будет на YouTube через Blockchain Day. Где-то в течение недели, может быть, чуть побольше. But I will be doing this presentation in English. I would like the 2 presentations to be in both languages on YouTube. So thank you for the great introduction. Thank you again for inviting me back to Kiev for Blockchain Day. My name is Tone Vays. You can find me on YouTube. I have lots of videos. I do videos every day. My website is LibertyLifeTrail.com, focused a little more on trading. What I'd like to talk to you about today is the current environment of ICOs. Those that were here last year for my presentation, it was about the history of Bitcoin and all of its bubbles. I wanted to do something different. And in this presentation, I want to talk about how the ICO bubble or the ICO environment is reminding me of the dot-com bubble in the late 1990s. You know what? I'll skip that one. So what you're looking the chart behind me is the price history. You know what? I'll stand here. This might be better. The chart behind me is the price history of the NASDAQ during the bubble to 5,000 valuation of the NASDAQ, then the subsequent crash, and then the recovery back to the new high. Now, since 2014 or 2015, when NASDAQ went to all-time high, it continued to go up. But I want to focus on what happened during the dot-com bubble and how it reminds me of the current environment. This is what happened during the 10 years surrounding the dot-com bubble. And you can see how one of the first stocks to go IPO during the dot-com bubble was Yahoo. Yahoo is still with us today, but Google has outcompeted them. On that first day of Yahoo's ICO, Yahoo's IPO, I will tend to get those confused. On the first day of Yahoo's IPO, it gained 50% in value, closing the day at $33 at the time. Today, after stock splits, Yahoo stock was about $1.38. The Federal Reserve Chairman, Alan Greenspan, warned about the irrational exuberance of this tech bubble. He warned back in 1996 of that situation that we were in, starting to get into the potential bubble, but it was very, very early. Then we had Amazon do its IPO, and Amazon only gained 31% on that first day of ICO. That was back in 1997, and the close of that stock was at $23. I will get to pets.com a little bit later, which is actually a very interesting situation with pets.com that I will talk about. But I'm going to talk about some of the more interesting stocks that went IPO during the dot-com bubble. And one of those was the Globe.com. The Globe.com IPO made 600% on the first day of IPO. The stock closed at $63 that very first day. It closed at 63, making 600%. The stock was supposed to open at around $9, but it had so much interest that it opened at $87 and closed the day at $63. The Globe.com was an internet project that was going to give everyone their own website and their own kind of like neighborhoods on the internet, like building internet communities, because it was all about the sharing of information about the community. There was so much hype around this project that it had such a crazy valuation. Of course, it didn't go too well right after that, and within 3 years, that stock was delisted in 2001, 3 years later, and the last price was 16 cents. That's what happened to that company. That company set a record when it made 600% on that first day. That record was broken not too long after that with a company called VA Research. VA Research was a company just like Dell. So Dell builds Windows machines, custom makes Windows machines. VA Research was custom making Linux machines. There was so much hype around this company that it made almost 700% on the very first day. The stock was supposed to open at around $30 a share. The first trade of that stock took place at $299 a share, or $300 a share. And you can see the chart that it did nothing but go down ever since. And that stock closed at about $7 a share only 2 years later. It was just continuously going down. And both of these companies, this one and the Globe.com, it all ended with a lot of lawsuits. So here was another company that took place during the dot-com days. I remember this company very, very well because I actually used them at the time. It was called Cyber Rebate. Here is the idea of this company, and people thought this was going to be one of the biggest money-making companies. They would sell you a product, mostly electronics, and they would sell it to you at 10 times more than it actually costs. So you would go and buy, I'm trying to remember what was popular back then. Let's say you want to buy some kind of camera. So the camera costs $50. You would pay $500 for that camera, but then you would submit a request to get your entire $500 back as a rebate. So the profit model for this company was they expected half the people not to request the rebates, and that's how they would make their money. People thought this was an amazing idea, and the company had like millions of dollars invested in it, and at one point they owed 9 people over $100,000 each. At the end of the day, the company, of course, went bankrupt, and a lot of the people that were waiting for those checks back for $500, for $1,000, ended up only making 9 cents for every dollar they were owed. Again, there were a lot of lawsuits, and it didn't end very well for that company either. So there were lots of spectacular failures during the dot-com bubble, which hit its high on March 10th, 2000, and it was all about everyone was making money, but very few people were able to sell at the very top. Here's one example of someone that was able to sell at the very top. How many of you are familiar with the name Mark Cuban? He owns the Dallas Mavericks basketball team and has a big presence in the VC space as well now. And in 1994, he invested $10,000 into a company that was going to start to put radio on the internet. He wanted to listen to his college basketball games on the internet. And they initially changed the name of that company to AudioNet back in around 1998. They changed the name to AudioNet. With his $10,000 investment, he owned about 10% of the company. He then convinced the creator of that company that he should hand him over the operations. Once he had control of the operations, he had a bigger chunk of the company because he basically promised he would make big things with it. And he did. The company went public on the stock market in July 1998. Once it went public, the man who invested $10,000 was suddenly worth $300 million of this company. The valuation of that company put every single listener of AudioNet, it was also rebranded to broadcast.com. Every person that was listening to broadcast.com was valued at $10,000 per user. That was the valuation of that company. 9 months later, Yahoo bought this company at a higher valuation. Or, I'm sorry, Yahoo bought the company valuing each customer at $10,000. Mark Cuban became a billionaire upon that sale, and he was given that $1 billion in Yahoo stock. He pretty much almost immediately sold almost all of that Yahoo stock, taking the $1 billion right before the dot-com bubble popped. And as you can see at the bottom of that slide, Yahoo shut down broadcast.com in 2002. So a company that made its CEO $1 billion that he was able to cash out completely legally, basically the company was shut down because it wasn't going to make any money. So this is a story of someone that is able to get out at the top. Whether he knew or he got lucky doesn't matter. What he has done with that billion since then kind of shows you that he was probably more good than lucky. But even some of the better ideas where people were able to walk away with $1 billion never continued on. So there were lots of interesting stories during the dot-com crash because that was the rise. The fall was a 78% drop from the very top of the NASDAQ bubble. And there were other really interesting situations. I can probably talk about every one of the companies on this list that I was able to get from Wikipedia. But one particular situation was really, really interesting during the dot-com bubble. And that was companies would change their name to show the investors that they were becoming part of this technological innovation. So one of those companies was a company just changed its name to Digital Corporation in order to say that they are now a .com, a company that had nothing to do with the internet. It was a communications company. By changing its name to eDigital, the stock of that company went from 6 cents to $2.91. So the stock of that company basically, and then eventually it went all the way to $24. So a stock that was 6 cents went all the way to $24, all because they changed their name to eDigital. The SEC and the regulators did not like that very much. And a lot of people back then got into a lot of trouble for simply changing their name. Everything that happened then is happening right now. We've already had several instances of companies that are publicly listed changing their name to something with blockchain, and you can see their stock immediately go up, exactly like what's happening during the dot-com crisis. Here's one example where a stock that was trading at about 2 cents announced that they are now going to implement blockchain, and their stock went from about 2 cents all the way to 45 cents almost immediately. Of course, the stock started to come down, and the SEC suspended its operation. This was in August 2017, when ICOs were still a kind of new. A more interesting situation happened in December of just this past year, a few months ago. Long Island iced tea company became Long Island Blockchain. You can see the stock of this company immediately rose from under $2 all the way to $14. And the C-level managers of that company actually sold their shares. And the regulators will see this, and these kinds of stocks will get suspended, and the CEOs of these companies are going to get in trouble. And you can see in that quote, I forgot to put a box around it, but it says, like one of the analysts says, it's so reminiscent of what happened in the late 1990s. One of the authors said, a history of the United States in 5 crashes. He's the author of that book, Scott Nations. A company that had nothing to do with the internet would put out a press release that they were going to become an internet company, and the stock of that company would immediately go through the roof. That is happening right now by just changing your name to blockchain to make your prices go up. And here is a chance to talk about pets.com. How many of you have heard of pets.com? A few of you. So pets.com came out a little bit after Amazon. So Amazon came out selling one product, books. Amazon started selling books on the internet, and the business started to take off. Pets.com said, well, so many people have pets. We should start our online business by selling pet-related products on the internet. There really was no difference between Amazon and Pets.com. Amazon was a little bit earlier to the market, but the idea was the same. You're selling a product that people will buy over the internet. And this will lead me to a discussion explaining to people that when an ICO tries to get your money for that product, you need to realize that do you understand that product? Do you understand the underlying nature of their business? Because if you are just speculating to resell that ICO, this is exactly what was happening during the dot-com crisis. And there is a reason why we have qualified investors and unqualified investors. The only real difference between qualified investors and unqualified investors is money. A qualified investor has money to lose. An unqualified investor doesn't really have money to lose. The reality of the situation is venture capitalist funds do not beat the S&P 500 average. That means that professionals whose only job it is to find profitable future companies are losing rich people money. The difference is rich people can afford to lose money. And they mostly kind of want to brag about when they get lucky and invest in a company like an Airbnb or a Facebook or Uber or any of these other, or Snapchat. But nobody in this room could have known which social media was going to win. If I asked everyone back in 2000, which social media would you have invested on the ground floor? Most people here probably would have said Wimit, if you remember Wimit back then. That was one of the Russian websites. MySpace was a big winner there. Nobody could have guessed that Facebook was going to beat MySpace. It was mostly just luck. The average person isn't able to do that, and the average person is going to lose more money. There was no difference between Pets.com and Amazon. It all had to do with management and how you ran your company. And no one really has that kind of control. And here is Pets.com. It launched soon after Amazon. And does anyone want to take a guess? Who was the biggest investor in Pets.com? Which company had the biggest stake in Pets.com? It's a hard one. Amazon. Amazon was the biggest investor in Pets.com. So even Amazon invested in their competition because even they thought that they were not going to be the only retailer. So just think about it. If Amazon didn't know, lost a lot of money investing in exactly the same product as what they do, what chance does the average person have that's being solicited for ICO funds other than for the point of speculation? Okay? Now, more examples of everything that is happening now has happened in the past. To a very ridiculous point. Let's see if we can play this video of the actress Whoopi Goldberg.
Gotta get a gift for a kid, and you don't know what they want because you're old. Old, honey. Give them Flu's online gift currency. It's just like money. You send it by email, they spend it at some of the web's coolest stores, and you come out hip and smart. It's graduation day. Duh.
It's the only commercial I was able to find of Flu's. Flu's was money for the internet. They tried to do Bitcoin back then. Internet money is not new. Internet money was tried back in 1999. They had several big actors on board. It was money for the internet, and you would earn this money by shopping at stores. They would give you this money for only for the internet, and then you would use it all around the internet. The problem with Flu's is the same problem that almost every ICO and almost every altcoin is going to have. And that problem is it has a centralized point of failure. Every ICO has a CEO. They have people in charge of the project that can always reverse those transactions, and you can hold those people accountable. Even Ethereum was able to reverse transactions after the DAO hack. That shows governments and regulators that Ethereum is not really a decentralized blockchain. If a couple of people can just go ahead and give those that made bad investments their money back. And that's a big problem. If you're able to reverse what happens on your blockchain, then it's not a blockchain. The whole point of a blockchain and Satoshi's innovation that he brought to the world in 2008 is this decentralized mining known as proof of work. To this day, I believe that the only way you can be a blockchain is if you are proof of work, because that's the only true decentralized system, the only true competitive system. And yes, it burns a lot of electricity, but this electricity needs to be burned, because without the burning of this electricity, you do not have this amazing internet asset that I have considered, and probably I didn't coin the term, but I use it a lot. The term is unconfiscatable. If you properly protect your Bitcoin, it is unconfiscatable by governments or other people. That's its most important property. The second most important property of your blockchain is the ability to transfer your asset digitally to anyone in the world without anyone in between that can stop that transaction. that also comes with a lot of responsibility. And that biggest responsibility is if you send it to the wrong person, you will lose control of that asset. This is the true property of the blockchain. By giving you the ability to make it unconfiscatable, you have to take full responsibility of what you do with that asset. This does not transfer to things you don't want to accidentally lose. You don't want to put your property on the blockchain because then you have the ability to lose your own ownership by doing something stupid like forgetting your password. That's not what the blockchain's for. It's not for putting your medical records on the blockchain because then you can lose all of your medical records or accidentally send your medical records to someone else. This property of the blockchain isn't very useful for everyone. And but people have been using the word blockchain to simply mean a database. Almost everything that people want to do with the blockchain today, I can do it with an Excel spreadsheet by putting it as a Google document and giving certain people admin rights to change that data. Because there will be a record in Google that is pretty secure and not going to be changed of who changed what. That's what most companies need, a way to easily share data and see what everyone is updating. They don't need this ability to have total immutability of that data. And that's the secret of the blockchain. And I believe that Bitcoin will be the leader. And at the end, we will only have one public blockchain, just like we have one public internet today. You don't have multiple internets competing with each other. I don't see a future where you have multiple blockchains competing with each other. I see a future where Bitcoin continues to separate itself from everyone else, even if the market value doesn't show that, and I'll get to that in a minute. And whichever companies utilize the Bitcoin blockchain properly, those companies are going to succeed. And all of these altcoins and ICOs will get the same exact regulation as IPOs. I don't believe Bitcoin should be regulated at all. I don't believe Bitcoin should be regulated. I believe people should be in control of their own money. But I believe the current regulation on who you can solicit money from for your project should not change just because you have Ethereum to build your ERC20 token. I think the rules on who you should get money from for your projects are not that bad. I think maybe those rules can be relaxed a little bit, but I do think there needs to be some regulation there. I have one final story from the .com days, and it really reminded me of something I saw at an event not that long ago, about 6 months ago. When I searched around the internet for some of the most interesting stories during the .com crisis, the following story came up, and it goes the following. I knew a guy who had a company that was going to do something arguably interesting in the field of communications. He raised money, hired a couple of guys, and bought space announcing the product on a huge billboard in San Francisco, very tech-savvy place. There was no product. It was purely aspiration and a dream of what that product will be, but it had a very fancy billboard and good advertising. A company offered him $100 million to buy this idea off of him, and they gave him a contract. You have to stay with our company to get that $100 million. You have to stay with our company and work for 3 years in order to get this $100 million. After a couple of months, the company realized that the guy was pretty useless. But they still thought his idea was good, and they already bought it. So what are they going to do? So they told him, you know what? You're just in the way of us integrating your product. Take the $100 million, and you can go. He took the $100 million, left, and realized, well, all I had was an idea, and these guys just paid me $100 million. They don't know what they're doing. So he went ahead and used a bunch of that money and shorted the stock of that company and made himself another $100 million when that company went bust. Okay? All because he was able to buy and create a very nice billboard. And this is what it reminded me of. There was an event in Times Square. Who can recognize that nice billboard in Times Square in black? That's the EOS billboard. It really reminded me of that story when we looked out the window from this event in Times Square, and there is a nice fancy EOS billboard. So I'm curious to see how the EOS project will end. Let's just say I'm not a big fan of that project. So that was basically the dot-com bubble in a nutshell. Let's talk about some of the notable people that were arrested for some of these shenanigans and see if some of those stories remind you of what's happening in the current ICO space. How many of you have seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street? Okay. So Jordan Belfort went to prison on April 18th, 1999. He started out selling penny stocks, which is, again, very similar to what I consider altcoins and ICOs, running pump and dumps, which I'm sure a lot of you see very often. But what people don't realize is one of the things that he really got in trouble for was the following. And I have one more video from the movie. It's only a few seconds clip, but it's very, very interesting.
An IPO is an initial public offering. It's the first time a stock is offered for sale to the general population. Now, as the firm taking the company public, we set the initial sales price, then sold those shares right back to our friends. Look, I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: was all this legal? Absolutely fucking not. But we were making more money than we knew what to do with.
Okay, I'll repeat this one in English and in Russian, just to make sure you guys understand exactly what was going on. He started that company with about 4 or 5 people, and it grew massively. And what happened was they had the ability to take a firm, a company, to an IPO. How many of you have heard the speech that, well, it's too expensive to take a company IPO in the stock market, and it's something that has to be done through JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, and it's so complicated, and Wall Street is just ripping us off? I'm sure many of you have heard this. One of the reasons why it's so expensive and why only a few companies do it is because so this situation doesn't happen again. What they were doing was they were taking a company public, and they were selling or giving those pre-IPO shares to their friends and family and influential people. And this is exactly what I see in the pre-ICO space. Wall Street are crooks. It costs too much to go public, but you go pre-ICO and you hand out those shares to favorable people, to your friends. You tell your friends about it, get the pre-ICO shares, give them to some influential people so they can pump it on social media, and then it immediately goes to an unregulated exchange, and those people immediately cash out, just like Michael was saying earlier. Это я хочу сказать по-русски тоже. И вот Джордан Белфорд, что они делали с компанией, это они привели компанию в IPO, они выдавали эти pre-IPO шеры дешево друзьям и людям, которые смогли хайпать этот IPO. А как только он выходит IPO, эти люди сразу продают и зарабатывают гигантские деньги. И я то же самое вижу, когда я слышу, что кто-то делает pre-ICO. И для меня это то же самое. All right, back to English. И вот еще одна ситуация. Investment banker Frank Cotrone gets 18 months for obstruction of IPO probe. And you can see it here as well. He was convicted in May of charges of trying to hinder a government investigation into whether CSFW doled out shares of hot IPOs to favored clients and exchanges for inflated commissions. Okay? This was a big problem during the time of the 90s. And this guy was involved in lots of prominent, very prominent IPOs, even involved in things like Netscape and Amazon.com. So he was a very important person. And even he was arrested. He actually never went to prison. The case went to another court, and he got off on some technicalities. But the idea was that it's very expensive and very few companies can take you IPO because if anybody can do it, they're going to hand them out to their friends for their friends to get rich. It's just the way it always happened. So all of these things that happened back then are happening again here in this unregulated space. So you, as an investor in an ICO, has to be aware of this and be very, very careful which ICOs you are investing in and why. So I'd like to close out this presentation with something that I realized. I vaguely remember the hype of the .com. I was still at my university during the time. I remember one of the guys, I was studying science, I was studying geology at the time. I got into finance later on. And one of the guys that was living in our dorm, he started trading penny stocks on E-Trade. And also, when I left and I started to learn trading around 2003, I learned trading from traders that survived the .com bubble with some very, very good stories that they got to tell us. And over the last 10 years, until about a year and a half ago, the question was still in my mind, how could it get that bad? How did stocks trade for $100, $200, $300 a share, and the companies were nothing? The companies were just a fancy .com, no product, no clients, no revenue. But they were trading at hundreds of dollars a share. How could it get that crazy? Now that I'm witnessing the same thing happening in the crypto space, I got to thinking, what helped drive the stock market in the late 90s so much? And what I came up with, oh my God, it was the online brokers like E-Trade and Scottrade and Ameritrade. You should go back and watch the commercials from the late 90s for E-Trade. There was that E-Trade baby. There were really cool commercials because by allowing people to have brokers on the internet, everyone from their own home was able to become a trader. This is how your taxi driver is telling you about the latest IPO because he's now able to invest in it himself. Before the online brokers, it wasn't easy to buy a stock. You needed to have a trader that would call you and try to convince you to buy a stock, and a lot of people didn't believe them. But now you can do it yourself. But it wasn't that easy. You still had to be 18 years old to open a brokerage account on the internet. You had to live in the jurisdiction. You can't trade American stocks if you're not an American or living in America or one of the other first world countries that have access. So you had a geographical restriction, you had an age restriction, And you had a financial restriction. If you wanted to be a day trader and a speculator, you needed to have $25,000 because that's the 3-day settlement rule. If you have less than 25,000, you have to hold your position for 3 days. Otherwise, you can sell it 5 minutes later. So there were a few restrictions. But even with these restrictions, your hairstylist, your barber, your shoe guy, your suit maker, they've all become traders back in the 90s because it was easy for them. Now, it's even easier. No geographical restriction, no financial barrier to entry, and no age restriction. Now, the no age restriction is really funny. Here is an email that I got maybe 6 months ago. Dear Mr. Vays, I am 15.5 years old and in high school, asking me for advice how to invest his life savings into cryptocurrencies. Thank God he was asking me about Bitcoin and not some altcoin. It gets even better. Here is a conversation. I'm almost afraid to show that conversation from Slack. I'm talking to someone on there. He's telling me about some kind of new coin. Oh, and he says, oh, of course I'm going to like this coin. It's a game coin. I'm like, well, why of course? He's like, well, I'm 13. He didn't say I'm 13. He says, oh, but I'm 13. Of course I'm going to like it. I'm like, oh, what do you mean 13? It didn't even cross my mind. And he had to clarify, oh, I'm 13 years old. These are the kinds of traders that are now pumping these ICOs. These are real examples. I'm not making these up, okay? I try not to give financial advice. I especially try not to give financial advice to 13-year-olds, okay? But this happens. These are some of your traders, guys. And I'm not going to talk much about this. This was a more interesting chart at the time that I took it, and I want to save a little bit of time for questions because my time is almost up. And this is where I thought Bitcoin was going to start to separate. This is before the latest ICO boom, where it looked like the altcoins have topped, and Bitcoin started to go to a new high. And the top chart is the total market cap of everything, and the bottom chart is the market cap without Bitcoin. And I noticed that the market cap without Bitcoin is nowhere near an all-time high, but market cap with Bitcoin was at a much higher point. I then updated that chart. It didn't look quite as good. And this is the total market cap. Again, this is a couple of months old. Things have moved quickly. I took the metric where Ethereum came close to the valuation of Bitcoin, and then it turns around. Every time one of these altcoins gets too high, it goes down, and then it never comes back to the same percentage. Bitcoin has since made a new low in total market cap compared to the altcoins, but everyone is ICOing. I'm still not sure how ICOing is a good idea in this environment. And the last things I want to say is a couple of very good tweets by Alex Marcos, where he says, here is one big difference between traditional startup funding and ICOs. Founders of failed startups should not come away financially enriched. И я это тоже хочу по-русски сказать. Он говорит, что одна большая разница между традиционными деньгами, которые начинают компанию, и ICOs, это в традиционных, когда ты получаешь деньги, и твоя компания никуда не пошла и полетела, ты из этого не выйдешь богатым. А в ICOs ты как только станешь богатым, ты сразу выйдешь и пойдешь делать еще одну. So we've seen something like this with somebody like Dan Larimer, who invented BitShares and then left, invented Steemit and then left, invented EOS, and he's probably going to leave and start something else. I don't believe these are blockchains. I don't believe any of these ICOs are any good, nor are they useful for anything. Alex then says, risk capital to explore ideas is great, but the incentives aren't aligned if founders make money at expense of investors regardless of outcome, okay? And I followed it up with the following, because people don't understand, in my opinion, ICOs. To me, ICOs is a combination of an unlicensed, unregistered security and printing your own money. Because a lot of these ICOs, they want both things. They want money, and they want their ICO to be treated like money, and they also acting like people are investing in them like a security. Bitcoin is actually a decentralized asset class, and I already talked about it doesn't have a point of failure where all of these ICOs actually do. And for an example, I am going to use two products, Ethereum and Tezos. Ethereum and Tezos are exactly the same thing. The difference is Ethereum collected a bunch of money, but actually ended up launching a product. I was a little surprised. Tezos raised a bunch of money. As far as I know, they didn't launch anything, and now they're being sued in a lawsuit. Ethereum had 8 co-founders. When Ethereum was finally released to the public, Ethereum pre-sold around, I believe Ethereum pre-sold 72 million in their pre-ICO. 11 million Ethereum was just handed out to the people involved in building Ethereum. So they printed the security for themselves, in my opinion. By the time Ethereum launched, only one of the 8 co-founders was still with the operation, and that was Vitalik. Everybody else had already left. Some of them say they never took the money, they left the project. The rest certainly cashed out. My problem with Ethereum is on multiple facets. Obviously, I never joined the Ethereum pre-sale because I saw it as a creation of a security. And I thought that the regulators would already come down on that by now, but they haven't. So there's still a huge regulatory cloud that I believe hangs over Ethereum. I also don't believe in having an application token. Application tokens make no sense to me economically. Why would a company force you to use their speculative stock or their speculative currency that gets traded like a stock, obviously by some 13-year-olds, as my emails can prove? It's speculation. Why doesn't Netflix charge your subscription in Netflix stock? Why doesn't Amazon charge you for products in Amazon stock? They charge you in the currency that is most convenient to you, not most convenient to them. The only people that can charge you in a currency that's most convenient to them are people that know that you're gonna have to, that your product is so unique that you actually have to go and find their currency. And the idea of decentralized smart contracts, I also don't like. I don't believe that contracts need to be decentralized, because decentralization is something that prevents censorship. And you don't have lots of censorship in contract law. You have lots of censorship in who you're going to pay. Every payment we ever make is somehow censored through the banking system. But contracts help the global economy. Decentralizing them is technologically inefficient and is just not necessary. My final problem is technological. The smartest people that I have met in the crypto space, most of whom have been coding the Bitcoin blockchain, none of them believe that it's possible for Ethereum to scale. And that made sense to me as a non-developer. Ethereum's solution for scaling is we're going to go to proof of stake. We're going to stop the mining. How do you go and tell all of the miners that are mining a block of Ethereum every 12 seconds? Making what, $700–800 per Ethereum token? How do you just tell your miners, hey guys, can you just please stop? I know you invested millions, maybe billions in hardware. I know you're making millions of dollars a day. We want to go proof of stake. We want to make just the money by holding our Ethereum. So please stop mining. I don't understand how that's ever going to happen. And I don't think that's going to scale, and I think that project will not last. So those are my closing thoughts. You can find me on the internet. I'm pretty active on Twitter as Tone Vays. My YouTube channel is also Tone Vays. I am thinking about starting a show in Russian, maybe once a week. I do videos once a day in English. Once a week, I'm thinking of starting one in Russian to try and get my thoughts out there to the Russian speakers. So thank you very much for inviting me. Спасибо большое. Извиняюсь, что я это сделал на английском, а не на русском. Но будет видео этой же презентации на русском, которую я сделал 2 дня назад в Москве. И если, я не знаю, если есть время на вопросы, я все мое время истратил. Можете задавать вопросы по-русски. Я, конечно, отвечу, может быть, на оба языка, может быть, только на английском. Спасибо.
Тон, спасибо тебе огромнейшее. Нам абсолютно нет разницы, на каком это языке. Главное, это твоя полезная информация. Друзья, подходите, кто хочет задать вопрос поближе, потому что я, к сожалению, не вижу девчонок с микрофоном. Есть, да? Все хорошо. Тогда задавайте вопрос.
Hi, Tony. My name is Max. First of all, I want to thank you for great content on YouTube. And my questions. Many crypto anarchists talk that we don't need banks, we have cryptocurrency, and we will use it for our needs. But do they really realize that if they keep their cryptocurrency in their wallets, it's the same that they keep cash in their homes, and the money does not work for economy, for world economy? What do you think about that?
Several things. I think there is a lot there. Lots of people think that we don't need banks, we can do it all ourselves, everyone on Wall Street is a crook. From what I've seen, because I come from Wall Street, I've seen a lot more scams on average in crypto than in the traditional financial system. So that's one thing. Regulating yourself will not work because all you will have is people selling their friends pre-ICO shares. As far as keeping your money in the wallet, well, most people keep their Bitcoin in Coinbase or other intermediaries, which are cryptocurrency banks. So from that angle, not much has changed. If you're not holding your own Bitcoin, it is just like the old system of someone else holding your money for you. And yes, if Bitcoin does become the #1 and the dominant currency in the world, I think there is going to be a big problem. People hate fractional reserve lending, but an economy needs credit. You may hate fractional reserve lending and the fact that money gets printed, but we don't know if if all of the innovation in the last 100 years would have still happened if we were not on this fractional reserve system. We don't know if we would have had the internet today. So the fact that creating credit is going to be very difficult because it's like you said, everyone keeps cash in their home. And the only people you can depend on to lend you money for your ideas are people with that money. Right now, we allow the banks to print money for potential business ideas and credit cards and give people credit. I think the ability to provide credit is going to be a problem in the future, and people don't realize it yet, but I think they will. So I think that's where you were going. I see that as a problem. I don't have a solution.
Thank you so much. Yes, over there, you please.
Hi, Tom.
Yes.
Thanks for your talk. Great talk. So first question, maybe everybody is curious about, how do you compare on your timeline the IPO timeline, the dot-com crash, the bubble, to the current state? Where do you think we are on this timeline, and which metric do you use it to come to this conclusion? And the second thing, what do you think about the market structure compared to the tech bubble? Back then, the retailers were late to the game, they got crushed. Right now, Poloniex is bought by Goldman Sachs, Bitstamp is bought by another one. Are they going to start the real game now? Is it just starting?
Okay, so I don't know. The answer to the first question, I don't know. I personally did not think it was going to get this bad. I think it's pretty bad. However, the valuation of the dot-coms that went to zero was in the trillions. It was bigger than what we are today. And the way, if you think about it today, the scope is bigger. Like I said, no age restriction, no geographical restriction. I didn't think it could get this bad. I didn't think that, but to me this is already out of control, but we could still be in 1995. This could get significantly better. So bigger, not better. It's gonna get worse. And what worries me is, you have a company like right now, what happened with like Binance, for example. Binance ICO'd, no other exchange ICO'd. I think an ICO is an illegal security, but they ICO'd and they got a lot of money. So they can make more with their exchange. And they're forcing their competition to also ICO. Even if their competition that thinks they have a better product have a lot less money. So they don't want to be outcompeted by a worse operation because they have a lot more money to hire better people. So you're almost forcing everybody else to ICO. So if everyone starts to ICO on Ethereum, like every single company begins to ICO on Ethereum, I think Ethereum technology can't scale. And if that thing goes under, how much systemic risk to the entire world are you willing to create? I think it can pop any moment, and all I can tell you is the bigger it gets, the worse it's going to be on the back end. I was saying that about the price of Bitcoin. Once the price of Bitcoin went above 7,000, I was saying, I don't know where it's going to top, but the higher we go, the bigger the way down is going to be, because we are going to come back down. I expected at least back down to 75, and now I still think we're going lower. If we only stopped at 7,500 and went down, created a stable base, we could have been back up by now. Sometimes when things go up too high, they crash even further. I don't have a time for you. These things are impossible to predict. I will tell you it will happen at the most unexpected time, in the most unexpected way, to cause people the maximum amount of pain.
Okay, over there.
Thank you for your deep and knowledgeable presentation. I just knowing that you get very nice Russian, so I will ask in Russian.
Thank you.
Первый вопрос, поскольку вы такой как бы негативный человек по отношению к ICO, у меня к вам два вопроса. Первый вопрос касается фьючерсных бумаг и наших рынков, в которых практически нет возможности использовать этот инструмент для будущих инвестиций. И второй вопрос – это когда выходят компании, которые пытаются собрать венчурные инвестиции, но фактически их актив ничем не обеспечен. То есть когда есть идея, очень nice команда, американцы, которые умеют красиво рассказывать идею, но, к сожалению, славяне не умеют так красиво рассказывать идею. Поэтому какой у них тогда есть выход? Если они не идут на ICO, у них нет ни возможности фьючерсных инструментов, потому что у нас просто нет биржи, которая занимается фьючерсными инструментами. И второе, их актив ничем не обеспечен. Это просто идея, и им не дают, под честное слово, никакие деньги, потому что о них никто не знает. Это славяне, это не американцы. Какой тогда выход?
Хороших выходов здесь нету, но понимаете, такая ситуация получается такая, что каждый человек думает, что у него есть биллионовая идея. И теперь они пытаются собрать эти деньги у людей, которые не знают, во что они инвестируют. Я не знаю, какая solution может быть. Но просто собирать деньги надо у тех, кто понимает именно в этой технологии. И проблема такая вот с этими ICO, у меня нет хорошего ответа, что люди могут делать. Я просто говорю, что мне не нравится, что люди сейчас делают. Это продают эти ICO, даже если друзьям это не продаешь, чтобы они быстро это продали. Продаешь любому, и это сразу выходит на маркет, и это все любые сразу могут продавать. И я даже не согласен, что много из этих идей хорошие. Но это мое opinion. Я по-русски отвечаю. I meant to say it in English. So, in my opinion, I don't believe that a lot of these ideas are good, but that's an opinion. Everyone is using the word blockchain just to get the money in the door. There is maybe 1 out of 100 good ideas out there. I don't have a good solution for it, but from what I've seen, I just don't like the solicitation of money from unqualified investors. I don't, but I just like, when is the market going to top? I don't know. I don't have a lot of answers. Maybe smarter people than me can answer this question better, but everything that's happening now was a problem in the past, and regulation came down pretty hard. So for foreign countries, I don't know. I don't know what the good solution is. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions from the Facebook. Тон. Ну, можно выбрать, да? Что должно заменить ICO? Или какими свойствами должна обладать технология, чтобы сформировать вокруг себя ситуацию на рынке, которая была во времена доткомов или сейчас в блокчейна? И вопрос из Телеграма. Биткоин — это пузырь? И как распознать перспективное ICO? Давай выберем что-то одно из всего и ответим.
Я быстро скажу, что заменит ICO? Как первый вопрос?
Что должно заменить ICO?
Я не думаю, ICO ничего вообще-то не должно заменить. Что я ожидаю будет, это регуляция на собирать деньги на свою компанию. Эта же регуляция должна оплаиваться в ICO. Может быть, она чуть-чуть поменяется, но идея была правильная. Надо собирать деньги у тех, кто может их потерять, а не те, кто просто спекулирует, чтобы сразу это продать. So you should be collecting money from qualified investors, not unqualified investors. The other question was about the Bitcoin bubble.
Вопрос, да, биткоин — это пузырь?
No, I think the Bitcoin blockchain is a technology like the internet. I do not think that the Bitcoin technology is definitely not a bubble. The Ethereum's ICO technology, I believe, is a bubble. I don't think Ethereum revolutionized anything. All they revolutionized is how people on top of Ethereum can replicate Ethereum's crowdfunding model. And I don't see that as any kind of technological innovation nor actual innovation. The Bitcoin blockchain, I believe, is actually innovative. And while the price of Bitcoin can fluctuate and may look like a bubble, the price of Bitcoin will go up as Bitcoin scales. So I don't see the Bitcoin technology as a bubble, but I do see this crowdfunding technology as a giant bubble. And I think people will wise up and no longer participate in crowd investing, because people will realize that all it will at the end do is lose them money.
Thank you so much. And the last question from over there. Yes, you please. I'm sorry.
Спасибо еще раз за презентацию. Хотел у вас спросить следующую вещь. Сегодня мы много говорили о децентрализации, много раз это слово прозвучало. И вопрос вот в чем. Может ли действительно идти речь о правильной, настоящей децентрализации в биткоине, если учитывать то, что 80% вычислительных мощностей сосредоточено в Китае, в тоталитарной стране, и 40% всех биткоинов сосредоточено у 1000 человек? Спасибо.
Okay, so the question was about potential centralization in Bitcoin mining in China or a small percentage of wallets containing the majority of Bitcoin? I get this question a lot, and the mining, I don't see that as a problem. I think mining will move. China will not subsidize electricity forever. If too much mining is happening in China, they're going to raise the price of electricity, that mining will move. Bitmain had a slight technological advantage with covert ASIC boost that they no longer have with SegWit. And also, Bitmain figured out very good supply management and the building of chips. Their chips were efficient. New miners are coming out from Dragon Mint, and new technology, traditional players are going to get involved. I believe that Bitmain will not be dominant forever. I think mining is going to spread out. I also feel that more people are going to be like myself. I run one miner. I always run one miner. I'm updating that miner next week when I get home. I just got a brand new miner. I'll sell the other one or give it away. People will want to protect their Bitcoin investment by helping decentralize mining, even with a single miner that loses them a little bit of money every year. Just like most of us pay for a gym membership, we never go. We're used to paying for something that we think is good, that costs us money. As far as a lot of Bitcoin in a few wallets, I don't necessarily, it doesn't bother me, and I don't believe it. I think those are fake metrics. The majority of wallets, 90+% of wallets, have no money in them at all. Because every time you send a Bitcoin transaction, you create a new wallet to get your change back. These wallets get created all the time. There's so much dust, tiny fractions of a dollar in so many wallets. Those wallets should not count. Only wallets with maybe $100 or more should even count. Also, when someone says, 10 wallets have, 8 million Bitcoin, you don't know if one of those wallets is cold storage for an exchange. The Bitcoin in that wallet could belong to 10,000 people. So that's a bad metric. You're assuming that a wallet with 300,000 Bitcoin is one person. That could be 300,000 people holding $1, and it's an exchange wallet. So I don't really trust those metrics. Also, when you're a private citizen and you made that kind of Bitcoin, most people, like Bill Gates, he made a lot of money from Windows, and that's great. I have no problem. The only problem happens if these people now start to run governments and then they create laws to make them more money. I have no problem with private sector, private citizens building something that earns them that money voluntarily, because mostly what they're going to do with that money is build another company to try and bring more. Like, look at Elon Musk. He created one of the first maps that similar to our Google Maps today. I believe they bought that out. Then he invested in PayPal. Didn't work out the way they wanted because of regulation. And now he's building Tesla. Most private citizens that get rich through voluntary means of money, they go on and make even better product to make more of our lives easier. A lot of those early Bitcoin adopters are now paying for further Bitcoin development to make it more anonymous, make it easier to use, building the Lightning Network. So it doesn't bother me when private citizens get rich.
Good. Thank you so much, Ton. I guess you can answer the questions the whole night.
Yes.
And then the next day, frankly speaking, the next day, let's invite all the people tomorrow for the intensive you're having. It is about the trading techniques, yeah?
I'll mention it, я по-русски скажу. Значит, эти презентации я люблю делать, как история биткоин, что это делает мой экспертиз, я трейдер. 15 лет у меня уже experience трейдинг, я technical аналист, рисую вот эти чарты, и как по чартам смотреть, какой probability, что цена пойдет вверх или вниз. Завтра я буду учить класс от 10 утра где-то до 5 вечера целый день, где я буду учить людей, которые хотят быть трейдерами или думают, что они трейдерами, техники, которые профессионалы пользуют как трейдеры. Потому что я увидел, что в этой криптоспейсе многие стали трейдерами, и до криптовалют ничего никогда не трейдили, и они правильно не научились, как люди рисуют все вот эти графики, и как они видят candlesticks и averages. И вот этот мой семинар учить людей, как быть лучше трейдер, и чтобы сам выбирал, что покупать, что продавать, и не надо было, что кто-то сказал, купи это, покупаешь и даже не знаешь почему.
Осознанный трейдинг,
вот
да, можно назвать его?
Да.
Спасибо огромнейшее. Тон, не отпускаю. Буквально секундочку. Хочу пригласить на нашу сцену соорганизаторов Ukrainian Blockchain Day. Это Михаил Лукань, Елена Гамуля и Максим Онегин.
Тон,
Yes.
ты для нас спикер, которого мы всегда ждем с особенным теплом. Мы всегда очень рады и о блокчейне, и не о блокчейне тебя увидеть, поговорить и так далее. Мы очень благодарны тебе за то, что ты часть нашей команды спикеров. Мы очень будем рады, если это сохранится, и дальше мы будем идти вместе, дружно, рука об руку. Мы тебе желаем реализации всех твоих фантастических идей. И это скромная награда, которую мы очень хотим тебе вручить за вклад в популяризацию биткоина.
Спасибо большое.
Ура! Тон Vays, поздравляем вас за огромный вклад в популяризацию биткоина. Это те люди, которые пишут историю, это те люди, которые ежедневно трудятся для того, чтобы завтра мы с вами просыпались и думали: о боже, что придумано, что мы пропустили снова. Поздравляем!